All right, what's up, and welcome to another episode in my series for NAS Beyond Storage. I don't know if I'm really calling it that. I guess I should. It makes sense. So, most people buy a NAS for backing up their data and things like media servers like Plex or Jellyfin, that kind of thing. I think those are the most common use cases, the most well known, but there's a lot more you can do with a NAS. And that's what I want to showcase in this series. And this episode in particular might be my favorite thing that you can do with a NAS that I think most people don't realize. So basically, you can block ads, trackers, malware, all that kind of stuff across your entire network, like all the devices on your network from your NAS. And I think that's a highly underrated or underlooked thing by the masses. The cool thing about this is it should only take a few minutes to set up. It's not super difficult. So we're going to install something called Ad Blocker. That's basically like the program that's going to be blocking all the ads. And to do that on the NAS, we're going to be using Docker. If you don't know what Docker is, we're not going to go into that into this video. I'll definitely have more videos on Docker specifically and all the other things you can do with it. Just know that Docker is kind of like a virtual machine, except instead of using an entire machine with requiring its own operating system, Docker does everything inside of containers that you make. And so that's what we're going to do today. Just a super basic summary of what all this is before we jump right into it though. So every time a device loads a website, it asks a DNS server where that website is. But when you use something like AdGuard, you're putting that in the middle and you're making everything go through AdGuard. So this is great because anytime a site tries to contact something like an ad network or a tracking server, AdBlock will basically just block it and just not allow it on your network. So that's awesome, but why do we want to run this on a NAS? Like most people, maybe you've heard of, use like a Raspberry Pi and they plug that in. And that's really cool, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. This is just a different way. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I already have a NAS. I don't have a Raspberry Pi, so there's nothing I need to, there's no extra hardware that I need to buy. I've already got it, and that's the whole point of this whole series. And the great thing about the NAS is it's running 24/7. It's got the Docker app, it's super easy to install, and it'll just run really well. So in my case, I've got it running things like the AdGuard, I've got my Plex servers, I've got a Minecraft server for my son, all kinds of stuff. And it's just super convenient to run everything from the NAS. All right, so let's jump in and start installing stuff. Okay, so I'm using a Ugreen NAS, so we need to get into that. Okay, so we're in here in the Ugreen NAS. So this isn't sponsored or anything, this is just what I'm using, this is what I have. So in your NAS, however you're gonna get that, in my case it's the Ugreen, I'm just gonna open up this App Center and I'm just gonna come down here and look for Docker. And in my case, I already have it installed, so you would just hit install. Once we have Docker, we're gonna go ahead and open that up. So the first thing that we're gonna need to do is come in here to image, and we're gonna need to get the AdGuard. So we're just going to search for AdGuard. This is the one we want. We want the AdGuard home, that's fine. And we're just going to download that. All right, so once you have that downloaded, you can just come over here to container, and we're going to make a new container. This is where we're going to put in the image that we just did. So this is the AdGuard. We're going to hit OK. So you can change the name if you want to. I'm just going to leave it like that as fine. In this case, you know, normally when I'm doing virtual machines or Docker stuff, like with the Minecraft thing, I might limit the CPU stuff, but this is pretty low usage stuff. So the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the auto restart. Now the one thing we need to just check, and it should be good by default, is the PUID needs to be to 1000 here. And the PGID needs to be to 10. So that's usually the case. We just want to make sure that that's good here. Okay, so we need to do a couple things here. First thing is we need to switch this to host. And then we need to make a couple of directory files. So before we do this, we're going to come over here and we're going to open up our files. So if we go into shared folder, we need to make a shared folder. I made one for Docker. And then I've made one for AdGuard. And then in AdGuard, this is really specific. We need to make these two folders and label them just like this. So CONF and work. So we have the conf and the work. Once we have these folders made, then we can come back over here and we're going to need to add 2 folders here. So the first one is in here, and we're going to pick the conf, it's fine. And then the second one is going to be the work. So we're going to add those. In the container directory file, that's going to be this /opt/addguard home/conf, and the same thing /opt/addguard home/work. Also, it would help if I could spell properly. There we go. Then the next thing that we need to do is just turn these on to read write. And then that's it. We're going to hit confirm. Okay, so there it is. Now it's running. All right, so once that's running, now we just need to get into AdGuard. And to do that, we're just going to come up here to a new website, into our search bar, and put in the IP address and the port of 3000. So you'll need to have your NAS IP address, and you should probably make it static. Let me show you that real quick. So in my case, I'm going to come in here to the control panel. I'm going to see my device, my network here, network connection. So you see here how it says static. So normally that's set to automatic and it's set to DHCP. But I've gone ahead and set mine to static. And that just means that it won't ever change this IP address, because if the IP address ever gets changed, like from an auto thing, then it can just mess things up. And, you know, that's like changing your home address and not telling your mail. All right, so now we're going to get started here. So we need to come down here and make sure that we pick the Eth0 one. And then for the port, it might not let you do 80. So like you can pick something else like 83 or, you know, whatever you want. And then it tells you right here, as you update that, this is your new address for getting into AdGuard. And then down here for DNS server, we're going to select the same thing. And then again down here, it's going to reiterate that you have a static IP address. So then we're going to come in here and create a username and a password. All right, so now we're going to go to next, and we're in. Okay, so here's your dashboard, and by default this will be 0 because you won't have anything set up. This is basically the control center where you can see every DNS request happening on your network. So one thing that I'm going to configure is I'm going to set my upstream DNS. So I'm going to come in here to DNS settings, and in the upstream DNS servers I'm using Quad 9. So you can just put this in here just like that. This will give you the malware filtering and encrypted DNS queries so that your ISP can't see them. The next thing I'm going to do is add a block list. So I'm going to come in here to filters, and I'm going to go to DNS block lists. So it might already have the AdGuard one already checked, but I'm going to add this one here. So I've already added it, but you can come in here and you can put your own in if you know your own, but you can choose from this list here. So you'll see under the general, the OISD block list big, that's the one I've already added. So you just would select that and hit save. So this one, the OISD block list, is kind of one of the best maintained lists, and it blocks a massive amount of trackers and ad networks without breaking any websites, because that's the downside to some of these. So I found that kind of a good all-around one to make sure that I have on me. Okay, so now that that's all up and running, all we got to do now is add the devices that we want to the AdGuard server for DNS. So I'll show you a couple of options on my Windows PCs and on my Android phone. So if we come in here to our network adapter and we right-click on its properties, in Windows, I like to make sure that this right here, the IPv6, is unchecked. And then we come in here to the the main one, the IPv4, and we go to properties, and we leave this alone, but down here you'll see I have it selected to put my own in. So this is the NAS that I have the Docker on, and then this is just the alternate DNS server that you can just leave as 1111. So once you do that, you're basically telling it to route everything from this PC through the NAS, which is through the Docker container, through the AdGuard. And that's all you need to do for the Windows PC. All right, so if you're on a phone, I have an Android phone. I have the Samsung S25 Ultra. So if we just swipe in here and go to settings and our Wi-Fi, and we come in here to these settings and then go down to view more. So this is important. It'll tell you your phone's IP address, which you're going to need. But then down here, this is the important bit where it says DNS1. You can see I've put that as my NAS with the AdGuard on it. And then for DNS2, I've done the same thing and put the 4 ones there. And that's all you need to do for the Android phones. So when you're in there, let's go back into the AdGuard here. So now over here, you'll see your client list. As soon as you start accessing the internet and websites and stuff, this will pop up. The client list will populate with whatever device is now accessing. So in my case, we can scroll down here. So I told you my phone's IP was 212. So here it is right here. Now it didn't pop up this, I named it that, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. It'll just display the IP address of whatever the device is. So just remember your device's IP address, and then what you can do, because again, you're going to have a lot of stuff on there like I do. I haven't even finished doing all my stuff yet. But we're going to come in here to settings, and we're going to go to client settings, and then we're just going to add a client. When you hit add client, you're going to put in whatever name you want to give it. And then under the, you don't need to do anything about the tags. Under the identifier, that's where you're going to put the IP address. You don't need to worry about any of this other stuff, and then you hit save. Once you do that, it'll pop up right here. So then we can come back and we can see all of this stuff. So this is my main PC. This is my laptop. This is my work NAS that has the AdGuard and Docker on it. This is my wife's phone. This is my other Plex server NAS, and this is my phone. And I still have to add my son's stuff on here too. All right, so now for example, if we come over here and go to like Yahoo, so there are normally a bunch of ads, and there are now none. And then if we come back here and like refresh statistics, we can see the number of queries just jumped up, and it'll show us how many of those have been blocked. So we can come down here and see some of the popular ones. So these are the top query domains, and that's just all the things that are asking. But then you have the top blocked domains. So anything from these has been blocked. Look at that. Telemetry, NVIDIA, Adobe, all kinds of stuff. This has all been blocked. Also, if you're going to put things like your smart TV and stuff like that on, and you absolutely should. I have a smart TV, of course, like everybody, but the only thing that I use my TV for is it's an LG, so that was a mistake based on the OS. The only thing that I use the TV and the apps for is that it does have a Plex app, and I have that so that I can just stream my Plex. It's just easier than getting like an NVIDIA Shield or some sort of other streaming device. So I have that with the Plex app, and that's the only app that I use at all with my TV. And then I have a PlayStation 5 plugged into the TV that I used for PlayStation 5 things. The only reason I mention that is because like if you're actually using your TV like more of a TV and you have streaming services or you have cable or whatever else you have, hooking your TV up to this is definitely going to benefit you. It benefits me too, just not as much because of the way that I have things set up. And because basically I canceled every subscription ever and I just use my Plex server now. So I'll be making another video on that too. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you want to see stuff like that. And if you're watching this in the future, then just look for that on this channel. Hopefully that'll be coming here pretty soon, because that's also, I'm running a Plex server off of my other NAS, and it's also through Docker. So it's really powerful, and you've got a lot of option with these NAS devices, and I'm just hoping to kind of open your eyes up to the wonderful world of all the things you can do other than just store some backup files on a NAS. All right, that's it. It's definitely chai time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.